morning and welcome to an episode of Camilla and I. If you're new here, I'm Mark Cooper and we do camera reviews. And if you've been watching Camilla and I for a while, you know we do camera reviews of equipment we actually own. So that's one reason for today's video, the purchase of the Sony A9 III. So this is following on from last week's video with Jonathan Hodgetts, where I asked him the question, if he was going to buy a camera, a £6,500 camera, which camera would he buy first? Would he buy the A9 III or the Sony A1? And he actually came up with the surprise to me that he would actually buy the A9 III first, which, So, anyway, we were doomed from that point on. Jonathan should be a salesman for Sony. So, have we gone absolutely mad on Camilla and I? We have traded in our beloved Sony A1 and we've dived straight in with the A9 III, immersing myself in the technology of this brand new camera. My 4-year-old, well, I think it's about 3-year-old A1 is currently for sale in Castle Cameras, Salisbury. So if you want it, it's a bargain at £4,500. Ooh. Anyway, quick advert for Castle Cameras. Yeah. Anyway, we're not suggesting that you rush out and do exactly the same as Camilla and I and trade in your Sony A1 for an A9 III. But there are some interesting options with this camera, and I thought I'll explain why we've actually gone full in on this camera. So firstly, we have quite a close relationship with Castle Cameras, and when this camera first came out, they wanted £6,500 for this beauty, but now they'd actually reduced the price to £5,500. So a whole £1,000 off. And trading in my A1 at the moment, it still has value, and they were offering me £3,500 plus another £300 for a grip I never used, and so I actually parted with £1,700 for this brand new camera. So it wasn't a bad trade-in deal at the moment. So yeah, speak to your local camera supplier if you can get a similar deal. I don't know, but the A9 III has not been a popular camera, particularly with the likes of wildlife photographers. I think sports photographers are very happy, but wildlife has not been as good. But anyway, yeah, keep watching. So now we have a brand new camera we've got our hands on. So this is brand spanking new, fresh out of the box. Beautiful. Jaron Poland's sniff test. Yeah, it definitely passes the new sniff test. Unbelievable. So yeah, we got a brand spanking new camera and of course the brand spanking global shutter, but that's not really why we purchased it. Anyway, keep watching. So the reason we went for the A9 III is the reason we were interested in the first place, and indeed the reason why we first purchased the Sony A9 and the A9 II. It was for the speed of action recording. 20 frames per second, absolutely incredible, and of course the autofocus capability. And it's basically the autofocus on this, I know it's very hard to believe, is actually stickier and more precise than my Sony A1 was. So that is probably the first reason for purchase. And as well as bird and animal eye autofocus, you also get insect, which no doubt we'll use in the summer as the sun's come out. Ooh, very rare here in the UK. We shall be out photographing some insects, and indeed using the bracket feature as well, stack focusing. So that should be quite interesting in due course. But it's the action we capture on Camilla and I. It's these short bursts of action which last 2 seconds, barely fleeting glimpses of wildlife. We can be in the field for an hour or so, and then we get the one chance to get that image, and that's where this camera really shines. So as I've got older, my reactions have started to fail, even though we do take care of ourselves on Camilla and I. What sort of keto diet we pretend we stick to, and we don't smoke or drink on Camilla and I, and we don't do any drugs. We don't do pharmaceuticals. So anyway, we're in pretty good shape, but having said all that, my reactions are not as good as they used to be. And this camera, of course, has the one feature we've been dying to get our hands on for years, which of course is pre-capture or pro-capture, I think, in the Olympus system. The ability to half depress the shutter button and to record up to a second of information before the action happens, and then fully depress the shutter button. And we get a 1.6 second 120 frame burst of lossless compressed raw images. Absolutely phenomenal. So we can capture every wing beat before we've even pressed the shutter. What a feature. And yep, that's a big reason why we've gone for this camera now. Essentially, we are practicing with the new technology for the hopeful introduction of the A1 II, which at this stage we have absolutely no idea what the A1 II is going to incorporate. We can only assume it's going to be the flagship camera once again of the Sony lineup, with all the features in this camera. So that's a big reason we're getting ahead of the game in some respects on Camilla and I, hopefully, fingers crossed, and we're immersing ourselves in this technology before we get too old and grey. Ooh, painful. So along with a load of features that we've got absolutely no idea how to use yet in this brand new camera, we also have better ergonomics. The grip is firmer, and the buttons slant slightly off, and the C1 and C2 buttons are raised slightly so that they're, you can clearly feel when you've pressed them. It's far easier to operate this camera with gloves on. And we also get a C5 button. Ooh, that C5 button for that turbo boost. Obviously we don't set it in 120 frames per second straight out of the bat. I think I've already turned it down to, yeah, H from H+, because I've got H+ is 60 frames per second set, and H is just a mere 30, the same as the A1. A fully articulating screen. I mean, this screen fully articulates, which yeah, is a feature that when you're getting down low to the ground, or Jonathan's hanging out of that Jeep on safari, he likes to lower the camera down on a stick and see through the actual screen rather than the viewfinder. Amazing. So yeah, fully articulating screen, nice to have. Not a massive thing, but there we are. So when we went from the A9 II to the A1, we went up in frame rate 50%. We got 20 with the A9 II, and then we got 30 frames per second with the A1. We got 30 frames a second with the A1. So that was a 50% boost. But with this camera, we get up to a 200% more photos in a 1.6 second burst. Absolutely incredible. So I thought this would not matter, but we do find in a burst of shots where you may have picked out 1 or 2 images using the A1, with this camera I've picked out 3, 4, 5 images from a sequence of a burst of, say, 60 frames per second, not even using the 120, and it's just amazing. Those extra wing beats, those extra heart movements of the subject are all captured in incredible detail. in this camera. So those are the main advantages with the A9 III. But of course, we do take an enormous hit, and that's why I'm not recommending you to rush out there and buy the A9 III. We're doing it in some respects on Camilla and I, so you don't have to. If, for example, you already own the Sony A1 with 50 megapixels, you really don't need the A9 III. Or do you? What, John? But, so in theory, you're taking a great loss in quality between 50 megapixels and the 24.6 megapixels with the A9 III. Anyway, we're always on about croppability, and croppability, for example, the R3 only has 24.6 megapixels, and the Olympus OM1, OM2 systems camera has a micro four third sensor, which only has 20 megapixels. And well, I haven't heard many people complaining about that, but of course the R1 is coming, so you know, perhaps you'd prefer to wait and see what Canon offer with the R1, certainly before diving in with this one. And also with a global shutter there comes a limitation. The 120 frames comes at a cost, that you do lose dynamic range, and this definitely loses about 1 stop of dynamic range. It's not as good as even the A9 II, but it's still pretty good. And of course you start with a base ISO of 250, not 100, which at first seems quite a shock. I must admit I was a bit taken aback by that, and that's probably one of the main reasons we've delayed purchase 6 months of this camera. The hit going from 100 ISO to 250, but in the field we haven't really found this a problem at the moment. Perhaps we've just been out on sunny days recently, but 90% of our shots are taken above ISO 250 anyway with the A1. So yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, I'll show you examples at the end of this video, and I think you'll be surprised by the results. 6000 by 4000 crop standard image size is still quite a good size to work with, and I'll show you some croppability that we've managed to get out of the A9 III, and I think you'll agree it's pretty spectacular. But anyway, you'll be watching it on YouTube. Try and watch it on your 4K TV if you can. This is recorded in 4K, so see if you can pixel peep on the TV. So I'm hoping you come on this new adventure with Camilla and I with the A9 III. As I say, in some respects we've purchased this camera so you don't have to. But the A1 II could be anywhere from 6 months to 18 months to never quite what we wanted. So yeah, we may have got ahead of the game here on Camilla and I. We will see. And certainly we are totally unfaithful on Camilla and I. I mean, I think this is Camilla, exciting times, Camilla number 7, I think this is. Or we Camilla number 8. Anyway, we don't do camera loyalty. We are a total cad on Camilla and I, and we go for the best equipment we can afford at the time, or in this case the most technologically advanced equipment, so we can learn how to use it before we get too fuddy-duddy and old. Anyway, needless to say, tell us in the comments below, have we gone mad on Camilla and I? Have we just wasted, you know, £5,500 essentially on a bit of kit that's going to be redundant in 6 months? Well, quite possibly. So anyway, yeah, give it to us in the comments below, please. But so far we're very happy with this camera. Anyway, so with this experience we should get a look at what we can get in the future from Sony cameras, but we've got it in our hand now. So the A1 II obviously is coming, but we don't have any idea what it's going to include. Will it be 30 frames per second still? 45 frames per second? It's bound to have pre-capture, and mine's already on order from Castle Cameras. So yeah, we will be diving straight in to the A1 too. Anyway, hopefully we make the mistakes on Camera and I, so you don't have to. But anyway, I'll get on now. Anyway, I'll show you first of all a couple of images we've taken with the Sony A1, the 50 megapixel camera, which gives us some amazing dimensions of image. And yeah, I think we'll go for this one first, which is yeah, taken near Pennington Marshes. Now, what have we got here? I've written a little label on each of these so we know what we're looking at. This image of the Avocet landing was taken at 1/3200th of a second, f5.6, ISO 800, with the 300mm, and 2x teleconverter, taking us to 600mm. Now this image that you'll see on screen now, I'll put it on screen, is 8,449 length and 4,865 in width. So we could easily crop this image, no problem at all. So, but anyway, take note of the quality. Amazing. Shut up. So I've got a bird tweeting in the garden, putting me off. Right, so that's image number 1 for the Sony A1. Okay. Now, image number 2, I've noticed actually I've printed it a little bit dark. So the image you'll see on screen, hopefully will be a little bit lighter because I've ballsed up a bit. Oh, shut up. Don't you love it when the wildlife ruins your video? Anyway, the image size on this one of the redshank calling on a post with its wings up is 7,409 pixels on the long side and 4,168 on the short side. It's been enhanced in Lightroom. I pressed the enhance button. It's 1/3200th of a second, f5.6, ISO 400, and it's shot at 420mm. That's with the 1.4 converter on the 300mm. So there's the examples of the Sony A1 with the 50 megapixel camera. Okay, so now we'll come on to the images taken with the brand new A9 III. And am I happy with them? Well, as you guess, I am pretty happy with them. Really, they are pretty good. Here we have another redshank with its wings up on a post. So not quite as good an image, I don't think, as taken with the A1, but at least it's a redshank on a post. Anyway, these size dimensions come in. This is not cropped that much. The size is 4,337 on the long side, 3,253 on the short side. It's shot at 1/4000th of a second, f5.6. ISO coming in at the base ISO with the A9 III of ISO 250, and this one is shot at 420mm, which is with the 1.4 teleconverter again superb detail, and really, well, you got a pixel peak, but see what you think. Unbelievable. I'm very happy with that. That is a potential ARPS entry without a doubt. Right. Anyway, we'll come on to the third image I've got to show you with the A9 III. And this is a meadow pipit feeding its nest, and it's just taken off from dropping some food in the nest, so it's really close, this this meadow pipit, and indeed both parents were coming in. Anyway, I got this image, obviously using the new pre-capture function. Oh, beautiful. And obviously it's just taken off, and this is taken out of a sequence. And this is 5,337 on the long side. So it wasn't much of a crop from 6,000, and it's 2,970 on the short side. So yeah, not much of a crop at all, but yeah, again, insane detail there. And again, that's an ARPS quality photo, I would suggest. 1/4000th of a second, f5.6, ISO, in this case 640, so the ISO is a lot higher, and this is taken with the 2x teleconverter on the 300. Amazing. So yep, so there's another example. And then, oh, I better do this one behind me because I might knock it off otherwise. Right, this is a little turn, and if you've seen a little turn, they're called a little turn for a reason, because they are small, about half the size of a big turn, maybe even a third of the size of a big turn. Yeah, anyway, this one again, A9 III, 1/4000th of a second. You can see I was a bit stuck on 1/4000th of a second. I think the A1 ones I took with 3,200 on one of them, but I do tend to go for action birds in flight in good conditions about 4,000th of a second. Anyway, ISO, again, the base ISO 250 with the A9 III at 420 millimeters again with the 1.4, and the size of this image was quite a greater crop. It was a lot smaller in the frame, and this was at 2,579 on the long side, 1934 on the short side. And again, not quite ARPS standard, I'd say. I think the crop is a little bit tight on that, but I would say, I haven't printed them out because I've run out of paper. I've got another image of a little turn in flight with some dark moody cloud behind, which is really nice. Perhaps I'll throw that one in, but I think that one would be an ARPS entry, but this one is not quite up to standard, so a reject. A reject, but still an incredible shot and pretty good image. So final image, just for because you know, people ask me for examples of the A9 III. So I got this image, which is very similar to the image with the on my last outing to the same place, Pennington Marshes. I got this image very similar to the A1 image, so we can sort of put the two A1 images. I specifically went for that shot to see if I could get a similar image, and I did. Very proud of myself, because they don't do that display all the time. Anyway, this image size, now this is incredible, because this image size is 2,600 on the long side and 1,957, roughly 2,000 on the short side. But this is shot at 1/4000th of a second, obviously, and it's ISO 10,000. So this is shot at ISO 10,000, not the base ISO. It was a bit duller this day. Anyway, this is obviously the 300 and the 2x converter, so 600 millimeter at f5.6, wide open on that combination. And this image would pass ARPS entry level, I believe. So anyway, we'll let somebody else be the judge of that. I will be we'll be trying to get a panel together at some point for the ARPS. So there we have it. Anyway, those are the trial samples so far. Only 6 images, but obviously it takes quite a bit of time to scrutinize and examine these in detail. But they're a very good cross-section of what we've obtained so far with the A9 III. So yeah, an amazing camera. I mean, not as croppable, obviously, as the A1. But if you get close enough to your subject, this is the better camera, I would say. Certainly for birds and birds in flight. That pre-capture gives you so many more images, like this one. It was so much easier getting this image with this camera than it was this image with the A1. Anyway, that's all I got for you now. Thanks for watching and have a good one. Bye from Camilla A9 III and I.